Hello and welcome to our presentation on virtual schooling in the 21st century. This presentation was created as the result of a collaboration between Roland Lawrence, Mark Johnson, Andrew Todd, Theodore Clem, and Alex Nolan, and this is Alex speaking. So the point of this presentation is to just give you, the school board, an idea of what virtual schooling is, what kinds of technology is involved in order to make distance collaboration possible, what do we need at a local level, and then in our conclusion, we want to talk about really why should we worry about virtual schooling, or not worry about it, but why should we be trying to get ahead of the game here. So to introduce the idea of virtual schooling, let's just kind of talk about a handful of the basic aspects. Virtual learning is really just another way of saying online learning, and you might hear this also called cyber school or cyber learning. Virtual learning is rigorous. It is not a free pass for students to get through a class very easily. It can actually be quite difficult. That really depends on the teacher, but it can definitely be rigorous. It is challenging. It can be highly collaborative. It involves a lot of 21st century skills, not only technology, but also in a lot of soft skills, just time management and organization and that sort of thing. And it also does require probably a little bit more motivation, intrinsic motivation on the part of the student in order to make it successful. Online learning can be made to serve many. We can use Web 2.0 tools in order to enhance collaboration, and we don't have to just treat one kind of student. Online learning can be used to help advanced students in maybe an AP course, average students who maybe want to take a foreign language or some sort of course that's actually not offered at their brick-and-mortar school. It can also be used to address at-risk students who are trying to get credit recovery or some sort of remediation. And online learning is managed. It's not a free-for-all. We have a teacher, an instructor, or a facilitator who is running the course, and they're going to use a learning management system, or LMS, in order to facilitate this. Depending on the quality of the teacher, an online learning environment can be very well facilitated. It's not just a completely independent study where the student is just lumped with everything and then they have to figure out how to deal with it. It really does have to be facilitated by a competent instructor. And contrary to a lot of beliefs, cheating can actually be quite difficult. Again, that depends on how vigilant the instructor is and whether they're willing to take the energy and the time and steps to sort of keep students honest. So it is rigorous, collaborative. It can be very well managed, challenging. It requires accountability from students. It can foster both independent and collaborative work. It takes motivated students, and it serves a lot of different demographics. You can have individual students doing things, or you can have students collaborating either physically or virtually. It can serve middle school students as well as high school and college students, where we're seeing even more application of online learning in the college arena. And it is facilitated by an instructor. It's not just throwing everything at the student. It does actually require some organization and facilitation by a competent instructor, and we can really serve a lot of different kinds of students with virtual learning. In order to get an idea of what virtual learning looks like, or online learning, what we're going to do is we're going to take a little time to consider synchronous and asynchronous learning, and then independent and collaborative. Synchronous learning looks like maybe a little bit like this. You might have a video conferencing system in which you have students who are watching or somehow interacting with the teacher in real time and collaborating with each other. So here we can see that the teacher has sort of a screen, a video camera that's directed on her, and then here the students are watching. There's maybe a little chat screen down here, and then here's sort of a little roster of who's in the class. This would be considered synchronous learning. So students and teacher are actually all on at the same time, and it closely resembles sort of a lecture-style classroom. We can also have asynchronous learning, which is probably going to make use of a learning management system in order to put everything up online, assignments and documents and things, and the student can access those at his or her leisure. It's not something that necessarily has to be all done at the same time or in real time. The student can get to materials when they get to them. They can communicate by email or some other sort of asynchronous communication system. Online learning can be highly independent. If we were to choose one end of the spectrum, we would probably say that online learning leans a little bit more toward independent. However, there's lots of room for collaboration with video conferencing software that I just mentioned earlier. And there's lots of other Web 2.0 tools that can enhance collaboration. So we can see an individual end of online learning. There's also a collaborative end. So what kinds of technology are we going to need in order for virtual schooling to be successful? Probably the most important one that is going to make any online classroom successful is going to be the Learning Management System, or LMS. And an LMS, what it really is, it's an online platform or an app in which students can look at when things are due. They can be assigned assignments. They can submit assignments. They can communicate with each other. They can upload or access documents. They can check out their grades. And it's just a central hub, an area where, it's sort of like a student's toolkit that they can use in order to keep all themselves organized, and of course that the teacher can use to keep organized as well. We'll talk about some examples of good learning management systems. We also nowadays need to have some access, some knowledge to Web 2.0 tools. Now, the web has been shifting since sometime around the early 2000s from a reading web to more of a read-write web, where we are creating just as much as we are consuming. And some of the tools that fall into Web 2.0 technologies would be things like Twitter and Facebook, but there's also more creation-based tools such as Pinterest and Blogger and YouTube, Wikipedia, Wikispaces, even Instagram or Snapchat, things like that could be considered Web 2.0 technologies. And this is really just technology in which we are collaborating and communicating at really a furious pace. And these can be really put to use in education. And in order to hit that sort of collaborative aspect of online learning, these are increasingly being used in order to help students collaborate. Video conferencing is a technology that we'll probably want to be familiar with in one respect or another. Just to name two tools that are really valuable for video conferencing are Google Hangouts, where multiple people can chat at the same time, and also Skype. These are both free, and they're both excellent video conferencing programs that can be used with one or multiple speakers, and you can see each other and talk. That way the teacher can have synchronous interaction with the students, maybe to coach them through something, and also students can have synchronous interactions with each other. A screencast would be considered an asynchronous sort of tool in which you can record your voice, so you can also record a video of yourself if you want speaking and showing something online, kind of like what I'm doing right now. This is a screencast that I created with a tool called Screencast-O-Matic, and this is what my dashboard looks like that I'm using right now in order to create this screencast. What a teacher can do is create a screencast, and then students can go and access that at their leisure if the teacher uploads it to YouTube or some other sort of video sharing site. And to sort of round things out, mobile access is really kind of changing the game here. Students can access these Web 2.0 and learning management systems, things like that, pretty much 24/7. And so mobile access is becoming increasingly important with online education. Students are connected pretty much 24/7 with their smartphones, and so we really need to take advantage of this for online schooling. So this is just kind of a taste of some of the technologies that are going to be relevant for virtual schooling. Now, virtual schooling or online schooling is, by definition, schooling delivered by internet by a distance. And so what does that mean? If we're talking about distance learning, what in the world is that supposed to mean? Well, it's facilitated by an instructor. This is not something that's, just got the students looking at things, without any sort of guidance. We have instructors that are there to help them and guide them to respond at the student's whim if they have concerns or questions. That instructor really needs to be available to help them. And students typically seem to report that they enjoy that aspect of online schooling, that the instructor is quite available. It's really not a hands-off on part of the instructor. It really does require some good facilitation on the part of the instructor. The instructor needs to use an appropriate LMS. So a great example of one of these would be Google Classroom. It's a free learning management system in which you can upload documents and you can submit documents for grading and communicate with little discussion boards and things like that. So Google Classroom is an excellent example of a free LMS. Then there's Blackboard. You have to pay for it, but it's also a very, very common LMS, very high quality. Edmodo, which is free to teachers in middle school and high school. Edmodo is used quite frequently, and it's also like Google Classroom and Blackboard for uploading documents for students to see and assignments, things like that. And then Microsoft Office 365 is a really excellent potential for a learning management system. It incorporates all of the Microsoft suite in there, and so it's just chock full of capabilities. It's also highly collaborative, so the learning at a distance can be very collaborative. So we have Google Documents, which can sync to Google Classroom, in which you can create spreadsheets and Word documents and PowerPoints and all sorts of other things that can be used to synchronously have students and instructor work together on documents at the same time. And then it saves automatically, so you never have to worry about losing your documents. It's cloud-based. Wikispaces is an excellent tool that students can use to collaboratively work on a web page. Skype and Google Hangouts, like I mentioned, are synchronous video software that can be used for video conferencing. And then we have Twitter and Facebook, these sort of social networking Web 2.0 technologies in order to enhance collaboration. And we want to not forget that distance learning is not holding students to a low standard. I mean, students are thinking, they're using multiple modalities, they're switching from computer to textbooks to written to verbal communication. They're going to be reading and writing, they're going to be doing their own independent research, and they're typically going to be able to go about this at their own pace and in their own schedule, at their own time, and in their own style. And this is another aspect of distance education that students often report that they enjoy. What do we need from you? So for local facilitation, what do we need as educators and our students? What do we need? We need updated technology. We don't want to see this happen to our students or to our teachers, for that matter. So there's nothing worse than trying to do an online class when your computer is crashing on you and does not support the software. So we definitely don't want to see this, and we definitely don't want to see this. So this can be a very frustrating aspect for teachers, is the technological aspect. What we really want to see is students smoothly transitioning into the online learning environment, and for this to be a very well integrated and competent looking process. We need teachers that can facilitate online learning, and we need mentors to help them. We need mentors that can help us teachers in order to figure out, how do we do this? How do we effectively do online education and do right by our students? We need supportive administrators. We need administrators that are willing to, really sell this online schooling and provide us the technologies and the support that we need in order to make this successful. We also need tech support. Last but not least, we definitely need tech support. We need people who are willing to be at the vanguard, at the front lines, who can really help teachers get these learning management systems and all these technologies off the ground, and also help us and students when we're in trouble, when a program crashes or we're having software or hardware difficulties. So that's what our students need. It's also what we need. We want happy teachers. So to conclude, why should we worry about online learning, or why should we address online learning? This is not a low-quality form of education. It can be very high quality. We can see a lot of engagement, rigor, high collaboration. This is something that students are getting more used to. And so we really need to kind of jump ahead here. We don't want to wait until it catches up with us. We want to try to get to it before it runs us over. Online schooling addresses lots of different learners, from advanced, average, at risk. There's a variety, there's a high diversity of different learners that can be addressed with online learning. And the technology is here. Web 2.0 technology is familiar, it's important, it's engaging and fun to students, and the technology is really all there. So there's really no excuse for us not to use it. What better use of this kind of technology than online education? And more to the point, more than 1 million students across the U.S. are in online classes as of 2016. If we do not provide online schooling, someone else will. And so we don't want to see this happen to our teachers. We want to keep teachers employed, and if that means that, our district needs to get ready for that transition over to online schooling, well, then so be it. We don't want to be caught off guard by this trend. We want to be ready for it. We even want to get ahead of the curve if we can. That way we're not trying to catch up to a trend that's already sort of beyond us. So this is something that we should think about and be thoughtful about. Web 2.0 technology, virtual schooling is here, and we would really like to see all these aspects addressed in virtual schooling in our district in the future.